the actual red flag defending.
I think it's like.
People deluded, I'm back again.
Come on, Ian, man. Come on. Let's go. We're back again. The duo you didn't know you needed to have, man. Alex, what are you saying, man? Better yet, the different knock. Make sure you're following on all the platforms. Great content, mate. What are you telling me, my guy?
Also, best intro music in the game.
Thank you, my guy. I love that. I love that.
So good. I'm good, bro. How are you?
I'm good, man. Where are you? I see you as pictured on a beach somewhere. I see it looks like different surroundings.
I was with, do you know Faisal?
Yeah, man. Big him up, man. Of course we know about him. Latte Firm and all of that.
I was saying he should get you on the phone. Have you been on Latte Firm?
I think once, we're due to do it again, man. He's good peoples, man. He make another one who makes good content. I can't imagine you're not following him, people, but make sure you are, man.
Oh, man. Yeah, he was on holiday. I'm in Bournemouth, which is where I'm from, and he's on a holiday. So I was like, we should meet up. So we did. It was really nice. He's a top guy. Really, really nice guy.
Like you said, he's a top guy, man. Obviously, we're both Arsenal fans. If people didn't know, there'd be issues. I want to kick this off with my first thing for you. Obviously, by now, I'm sure you've obviously seen the Nuremberg game. I'm sure you got your thoughts. So what did you make of it? If you can read too much into a first preseason game, second better yet.
Yeah. I think there's the camp of like, don't read anything into it. It's just preseason. It's just fitness, which I think is slightly outdated now. And there's people who like, someone moves into a different position and they freak out and they're like, that's it, that's sorted. I just think you've got to try and find a balance somewhere. There are things to read into it and there are certain things that are just preseason. I think more, before I speak about the game specifically, like Mikel Arteta, I honestly, genuinely, I know the new kit's come out today, which we might even discuss. But
like, I've bought it. It's atrocious, man. Yeah, man, they got me. I love my club. They got me, man. They got me.
Listen to that sentence, everyone. It's atrocious, but I bought it.
Yeah,
That is how obsessed this man is with Arsenal. I love to see it. Love to see it. But yeah, like I wouldn't be surprised if that was like I wouldn't be surprised if it was like a marginal game thing from Mikel. There's a whole thing about like bright colours. I wouldn't even be surprised if that happened, genuinely. So if we're getting to a point where we're buying dogs and we're like planting olive trees and like making our kits more yellow for like these
fine margins, man,
marginal gains, come on, preseason is going to be a consideration. There's going to be things that we can take from it. So yeah, I think the Nuremberg game was interesting. I obviously like there was some standout performances from like Lewis Skelly and Nwaneri and stuff. I think what we're beginning to see, and perhaps something we can discuss, and something that I've got a video coming out on later, is essentially a tactical shift from next season. I think we're going to see, because of the signing of Declan Rice, and because ultimately he is the best ball winner in world football, and I'll do what I normally do on these streams, and I'll send you a little
let's go, man. Tab police, look away now in advance.
If you the tab police. Actually, no, tell you what, go on do you know Aaron Catterson-Reed at Read the Game?
Say that again.
Aaron Catterson-Reed, Read the Game. Actually, I'll link it to you, don't worry. So basically, Aaron Catterson-Reed put together this thing, which I'll put in our little chat.
It made my life easier.
He put together recoveries and interceptions in the Premier League. So he put together like a sort of graphic that hopefully you can get on the screen in a second. And just have a look where Declan Rice is on this screen.
Let's see. Take it away, man.
So look where Rice is and look where Rodri is. This is a guy who is not only like an elite level midfielder, I would say probably the best in the world at specific things in the midfield in terms of recovering the ball and intercepting the ball. So when you have that level of quality in your midfield, what does it allow you to do? It probably allows you with your 2-8s to give them a bit more of a
gamble higher up the field.
Exactly. So I think we're going to start to see them drifting out to the wide areas. I think we're going to start to see them rotating with our wide options, because like if you think about it, last season, Saka and Martinelli did best when they came into lanes 2 and 4. So we're going to start to see our 8s further out wide.
Allowing them to stay in that half space a bit more, man.
Exactly. And I think, so like, for example, last season, obviously we saw those rotations on the right-hand side a bit more, and Xhaka was a bit more straight lines. But I think what we'll see this season is our left 8s in a more free role, which we started to see the other night with Trossard dropping out in the build-up into more of a 3-3 in build-up, actually. And then he's got a bit more of a free role and allowed Nelson to stay inside. And we saw that on the other side with Vieira.
Sorry to cut you, but it's funny that you said that before I let you carry on, because that's the only real thing that I took away from the Nuremberg game. I I agree with your point earlier about you can't disregard preseason. You can't read too much into it. It's all a balance. But at times you saw Trossard and Fabio Vieira when we're playing out from the back more when Ramsdale was on the pitch, kind of take up the wide areas to allow Saka and Cole to stay further in. So you're right on that, man. But I cut you off. Go on, my guy.
No. It's you're right to say it because it's ultimately there's a freer role for those guys, and I think that's the one thing I took from the Nuremberg game is that I think we'll just see more and more of that. Basically the attacking rotations being a little bit more like I suppose the way I'd put it is if Saka was the one doing the cutback 6 times out of 10 last season, Saka will be the one receiving the cutback 6 times out of 10 this season, if that makes sense. I think we'll see the 8s drifting wide a bit more. So that's tactically all I really took from it. And then obviously we had the performance of Kivior, which was good to see.
Good game.
Yeah, good game. Coming to midfield, which I didn't know he had in his locker. And then obviously, as I mentioned, Wanyeri and Lewis Kelly. So yeah, not loads, but enough encouragement, I think.
Yeah, like you said, man, you can't read too much into it, but I think it's a building block. And you saw however people paint the picture of how our season, was last season. A big reason as to why we even got into the debate of the title race is because we had a great preseason. We've bringing in signings in early. We've letting them gel in with Arteta, ultimately hitting the ground running. The only thing I would say on this graphic is that I do probably expect Rice and Rodri to be slightly more aligned if we were to look at this a year from now, because obviously Rice was at West Ham. They're probably going to be in a dogfight slightly more than Rodri, but it's like you said, really and truly, man. Rice is a quality signing, and I don't want to overrate him or overstate it. And I'm not saying he's in the same caliber of Patrick Vieira, but I genuinely think Declan Rice is probably our most important signing of the Emirates era if we're going to now be a title challenger. There's shades of Petit, there's shades of potentially a white Patrick Vieira. If we were ever close to replacing Patrick, which we needed to do many years ago, it is Mr. Declan Rice, man. And I think I speak for you when simply put, he transforms our midfield in multiple ways: the leadership, the experience, the ball winning, the ball carrying, which, as you said, with the rotating 8s is going to be ridiculous. And it kind of draws me on to my next question. Like I didn't have this planned, but obviously, for me personally, I think we're a midfielder short. We don't know what's going to happen with Partey. But when you look at it, Fabio Vieira has played as an 8 and a 10. You've got Smith Rowe, who allegedly is more training in the 8 role. We've obviously got Odegaard, who's an 8.5. Kai Havertz has just come in. Do you think we'll bring in another central midfielder then? Because I think we should. Maybe another 6 if Rice isn't there. But when I look at it, there's probably more options that Mikel Arteta sees in the midfield than we might give it credit for. Again, Zinchenko hasn't organically started in midfield, but to aid the agenda, you could throw his name into that hat as well.
Yeah. Looking at our midfielders now. So who we got? Partey, Odegaard, Smith Rowe, Jorginho, Vieira.
El Nene.
Oh yeah.
I know you don't want to include him, but El Nene.
Sambi, Kai, and Declan Rice. I think right now, also considering we've got Wanyeri and Lewis Kelly on that list as well, somewhere in and around it, I think that's enough. I think the only thing that I could see happening is like us signing like a project, possibly someone who comes in and has minutes. But then also, if you,
I love you.
Well, exactly.
Hopefully.
I think the only thing that would change my mind is if we sold Partey. I think the big question every Arsenal fan needs to ask themselves is this: is it better? So you've got 2 choices: to get £40 million and not have Partey, or have Partey for 2 more seasons. And to me, Arsenal are stronger if we have Partey for the next 2 seasons. Now, if that £40 million or even £50 million can be reinvested straight away into a Caicedo level or a Tchouameni or a Camavinga or whatever your personal preference is, or whatever ultimately Arteta's preference is, then maybe you do that. But I think with the Partey thing, like I understand supposedly he's leaning towards an exit and stuff, and he probably sees himself threatened in the midfield. But I think there's going to be so many minutes and so many games, and I think to see him leave next summer for 20, 15 million, I wouldn't mind to get through this season to establish Rice, etc., etc. I've always been worried about Xhaka and Partey leaving. I think, I'm not worried about it if we don't do anything else in the midfield, because I think we have enough. I think like in the right 8, you've got obviously Odegaard. I think Havertz will spend time in there. I think you can see Smith Rowe there. You can see Vieira there. You can see Wanyeri there. On the left 8, you've got the options on that side as well. And in the 6, you've got Jorginho, Partey, Rice, and El Neni, and Lewis Kelly. There's a lot of depth there and a lot of quality there. So really only, I don't think we need anything, maybe a project, but even then you have to consider, is that stepping on the toes of a Lewis Kelly or someone? So for me, no. But if we get a great deal for Partey and we know we can get something else in, I would probably do that.
I mean, I'm kind of with you. I think in relation to Ethan and Miles, obviously I want to see them playing things, but if we're immediately targeting Premier League football, they're probably a bit irrelevant for it, so I'll disregard them. If you could bring me a number 6, even with regardless of what Partey is, maybe I'm being spoiled, but I would like that because I do like Jorginho. He's just more of a cultural 6 than the tenacious 6. El Nene is good for a couple of games a season, and there was, if there's an offer placed at the feet of Arsenal and they let El Nene go, fine. But I think he could have been afforded to stay for another year. I do think me and you will be sat here a year from now probably talking about central midfielders. Just because you're turning the wrong side of 30 doesn't mean I think you need to get rid of you. But as you just alluded to, Partey is a very technical case that we're going to have to, analyze when the time comes. I don't think Jorginho will probably be here next season, well, the season after next. And if he is, probably a marginalized role. Respectfully to El Nene, the way we're going as a club, it's probably a myth. And yeah, I just think we need another player. And that takes me to this. Before I ask you specifically about Kai Havertz, what do you make of Rice and Partey potentially playing together? Because admittedly, I do want to see a bit more going forward, but I think people underestimate what Declan Rice could do in the opposition's half. They do the same with Partey. If we was to kick off in the Premier League today, as much as I'm personally intrigued about seeing what Havertz could do, for example, bro, I would probably start Rice, Partey, and Odegaard in front of them. And it's like you said, I do think specifically Arsenal fans, they like to have it two ways. We always scream about depth, and you would have thought last season would have displayed that. Then every player who isn't necessarily playing or isn't flavour of the month, their days are numbered. So where are you at with that?
Well, I don't know whether it needs to be this or that. I think it can be both. I think there's certain games, where we might even see Jorginho, Rice, Odegaard. For example, like in a Newcastle game, because you've got the physicality. You've got to go to St James's Park. You've got to get a result. Remember Jorginho,
and you've got to assert yourself on the ball as well. So you're right,
mate. You remember Jorginho's performance? That man was not phased. Like he just received it under pressure, could get it out. And if you think you want that in your midfield that day, go for it. If you think that in a big Champions League game at home, you want to just see all out kind of, go for it, get Partey, get that ball
trenches
going. If you don't think you're going to be defending much, maybe even take Rice out because you've got a big game at the weekend. Who knows? It depends, So I think
just need different options.
Yeah, I think so. And you look at like, let's say Man City they're always the benchmark, aren't they? Right? Like Rodri is kind of their base, and they pretty much will always play. And then in front of him, you had largely Gundogan and De Bruyne towards the end of the season. But there was times when it was Foden. There was times when it was other dude. Can't remember his name now. Who's the Man City midfielder I'm thinking of? Name Man City midfielders.
They've got so many, man. You've got Rodri, you've got Bernardo Silva, you've got Gundogan. There you have it. Silva.
So it kind of depends. And then he went out to the right hand side. So it just depends what you're facing and what's working at the moment in the team. And we're going to have games where it's not necessarily that we need to change it every single week and every single thing needs a new. But
there'll be some games you got to be a bit cute and clever.
Exactly. So I think this idea of a first 11 is dead. I think
Say that again, please, because that's something I'm so passionate about. Because I think people, as you just mentioned, Manchester City as a benchmark. Obviously, if you're playing out of your skin, or you're a Haaland, you're a Rodri, you're evidently indispensable. Probably Diaz, you'll always play. But it's all about a collective squad. Even when Zinchenko and Jesus were at City, they were marginalised players. You saw towards the end of the season how they helped them win the Premier League that year. So that is the comment of the live stream, really, because fans don't understand this. Like, they want a squad and they want depth, and then we cry about the person that's not involved. If we rotated the team every week and gave everyone a game, we wouldn't have had the season we had, because the players wouldn't be building relationships and things. And fundamentally, as much as I like the fact of it's a family and things, we're not here to be friends. We're here to win games. The best players go out there. If there's someone levels with Saka or better, I'm sure Arteta would like to rest him. Obviously, he needs to be cute and clever, but Saka, for example, helps us win games, and that's the sort of stuff we've got to do. So you're right in that regards, man. Comment to the live stream so far.
And that's the first 11's dead. There's your title. But you
know what? You're right. Still, that reminds me. Yeah, you're right. Still, he's a low rounder, folks.
Get the thumbnail. I just think, like, you also look at the players that Arteta's signing. Rice can play 6. Rice can probably even play centre back, and he can also play left 8. Kai Havertz could probably play in both of the 8 positions. You could even start at false 9. You could probably even float him out wide. Urian Timber, he could play in the middle. He could play on the exterior.
He said he could play in midfield as well himself. In the Arsenal interview, said I could play in midfield. So Arteta's horny about that, man. 100%.
And the reason you do that, in my opinion, is because then you don't have to. You can have a first 15, 16. It's partly why I'm like, I got asked a question the other day about who's the first person in the current Arsenal first team to leave, as in the first 11. And I said Zinchenko. And it's not because Zinchenko is not a good player. Zinchenko is a very, 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 very good player. In fact, I would say in that inverted left back role, he might be the best in the world. He might be in that specific role. But that's his superpower. He can't really sit in for you in a game and be that kind of centre-backy fullback. He can't shift into central.
He's never going to be known for great 1v1 defensive duties because it weren't him really. He's been converted into a left back. He's a centre mid by trade, essentially. You're right.
Yeah, and I don't think you see him as central midfield. I don't think you see him as an overlapping fullback. I don't think you see him as a centre-backy left back. He's quite specific, and that's not his fault. It's just what he's good at. And I think
what he is.
As the team evolves, I just think we're going to see us moving away from players being one thing, because you're going to see even in a game, they're going to say, right, Kivior, what we need for this period of the game is I need you to sit in as a third centre back and let White go on the other side. Now, Kivior, I want you as your traditional left back because we're dealing with a right winger who's just come on. Now, Kivior, I need you to step into the midfield and add some progression. The ability to add that variety to your game, that's what we're going to see. And we're going to be talking about first 15s. We're going to be talking about minutes. We're going to be talking about all that sort of stuff. The first 11, the starts, the whatever, that's dead. It's gone, because you can't compete with Man City when they've got another whole squad. They've got another team to come on. So you have to adapt.
Guys like Alvarez, you forget, are at Man City. He'd work respectfully to everyone at Arsenal. He'd work wonders for us and give us a new dimension. Even the two lads that Gabriel Jesus and the man you were just on about with Zinchenko. And you're right, really, with multifunctional players. You know, the Zinchenkos, the Timbers, technically Jesus. You could even extend that. I know he's more conservative and he needs to stay fit, but Tomiyasu can play all across the back four. You said Kiwior as well. And for me, I'm not going to act like Arsenal have never had that, because we have. But the difference is these players can do their primary role and more. So you're speaking facts. Obviously, we're on this topic, and probably more than Balogun off the aftermath of the Nuremberg game. Havertz, a lot of conclusions drawn on 45 minutes of football. What did you make of that? Where do you make of it? What do you think of? I don't want to say gamble, because I don't think this is a gamble, rightly or wrongly, from Mikel Arteta. They don't make snap decisions. They've obviously been careful in their analysis of signing Kai Havertz. But to our ignorant fans, where are you at with Havertz? Do you think it will work? Do you have any concerns? Yeah, what did you make of his 45 minutes as well, man?
Our ignorant fans. Our fans are beautiful, my friend. They're never wrong, and they're never annoying on social media.
Amen.
I'm just going to share something. Can I share my screen?
Go on, let's see if it works.
Share screen.
No pressure. Make sure it works.
Window. Here we are. There we go. Can you see that?
There we go.
Yeah. So this is what I believe to be Havertz's best positions. So he's been often playing in here in the sort of 9.
Chelsea last year, isn't it? Yeah.
Problem, because he hasn't got any. He's not your final action guy. Broadly speaking, he can do it, but it's not his biggest strength. His biggest qualities are in these areas,
in the channels, especially that right hand side, like his Leverkusen days.
Yeah. So that's a specific thing that I think Havertz. I just wanted to sort of have that as a visual. I think people are gonna. Do you remember how, with Mesut Ozil, people would sort of, if we had a bad game or whatever, people just go, oh, it's Ozil, he's lazy or whatever. There's a sort of scapegoating thing to it, because what he does it's not very bombastic. It's not
talisman stuff. He's not going to get you 20 goals, 20 assists. He's not going to dance past a million players. But, he's one of them players where if you watch the game again, you might change your opinion on what you rated the first 90 minutes, essentially.
Exactly. That's basically it. Yeah. I just think Havertz is going to be one of those players who sit weirdly similar to Xhaka in the sense that he's almost going to be like what's that thing in a thermometer? Mercury. As the team gets better, Havertz will get better, and if the team's playing terrible, Havertz will be terrible. He's kind of going to be the thermometer of the team, because
Mercury poisonous? I don't know if that's the best of examples.
But I just think he's not your final action guy. He's going to be able to float into certain areas. He's going to be able to. You look at his running numbers. He's going to be he's going to create space. He's going to. If you watch an attack, if you watch all of Arsenal's attacks and just watch Havertz, you'll be like, oh, he created that space there. oh, he created that space there, oh, he made that pass there, oh, if Havertz
Very
wasn't there,
intelligent
that
player.
wouldn't happen. Exactly, very intelligent player. But I think what will happen is people will watch him and be going, "Where's the goals? What's that meme? Where's the goals, my brother?" Or something like. It's like, come on, where's this coming from? I think he's a footballer's footballer. He's a coach's footballer. He's someone who coaches and people in the game appreciate and understand. But fans will, I think, take a while to warm to him before there's some moments, basically.
So, gun to your head, we're starting our Premier League season today. For all you said about Havertz, and for what it's worth, I agree with you with the last 2 videos we've done. But you've got the option of Martin Odegaard, Kai Havertz, and either Rice or Partey, or option B, Rice, Partey, Odegaard. Premier League is starting today. In fact, in a matter of minutes. What option you going with? No pressure.
That's hard. I think ultimately Mikel will go. You're asking me.
Not Mikel, you, mate.
I would go with Havertz. I would go with Havertz because I think what we're going to have been working on in the midfield, and Ornstein confirmed it in his article, those signings are linked. Rice and Havertz, they're linked, and I would go Rice, Havertz, Odegaard because, and I'm not saying it will work straight away, but I think the once they understand each other in that sort of front five, once we can properly attack with the front five. Once
it gels.
Say again?
Once it gels.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, like once that front five understand each other, they understand each other's rotations. Havertz can fill in the false nine. Havertz can drift out to the left to allow Martinelli inside. Havertz and Odegaard can swap. Once those movements and patterns and they begin to understand each other, we are going to be absolutely flames, mate. But it just might take a little bit of time. I still think they're talented enough players to win that first Premier League game. I just think it might take a little while for us to get there. And I think the solidity that Rice gives you means that if you, for example, the other option would be maybe to play with Partey in the 6 and Rice at the 8. Rice is better than Xhaka. Not sure that's a controversial statement, but I think the bigger payoff will be eventually from allowing Partey to drop out, Rice to really anchor the team, and then giving Havertz and Odegaard that freedom. And I think eventually that will pay off. And I would start it because I think you've got to let it build.
I'm with you in the sense of, option A, in that, clearly that's what Mikel Arteta wants to do. Long term, short term, medium term, it's going to be Rice, Havertz and Odegaard, or variations, or that might be the primary trio. So I'm all for it. Obviously, I'm not privy to seeing just exactly how it's going to gel in pre-season beyond the games and stuff. But, if it is taking longer than expected, and as you mentioned with Arteta, he did urge time. If we were starting the Premier League today, personally, just to grab 3 points, I agree with your thing about, they should be able to get the job done. I'd probably go Rice and Partey, really, just because I've been so starved of physicality in my midfield, and you've just got 2 dogs in there in the nicest way. But I agree with what you said about Havertz. I think I'm a firm believer of intelligent players can always gel with intelligent players, and there's obviously going to be Arteta's not stupid. He knows there's going to be a degree of criticism. He knows there's going to be teething issues. Obviously, Declan Rice, when you've been signed for 105 million, you're going to be the talking point, as is Timber for his money. But Havertz is the poster boy. Signings like Havertz are going to make or break Arteta's time at Arsenal, and I think he's shown, whether it be Aubameyang, reintegrating Xhaka and reforming Xhaka, signing Odegaard permanently off the back of the loan spell. He's got them right. The only one I think he's got wrong is probably Willian and Cedric and probably Pablo Maria at the time. So his difficult decisions have paid off. So I'd rock with it. I just think fans need to forgive Havertz for his Chelsea ties. Obviously, praise and critique where appropriate, but just give the man time. And me, I'm waiting for a fully fit Smith Rowe so I could start to throw him into these agendas. Moving on from that, though, obviously, if Havertz's name wasn't trending more, it was probably Balogun. Some of the people that were waffling about Balogun has to start, he has to this, they've probably done a complete 360 off the back of, I wouldn't say an underwhelming game, but a game which is obviously going to be summed up with his 2-3 chances that he didn't bag. So what do you make of him? What do you make of all the language that him and Arteta are kind of saying? What do you make of the interest? Because this week it's all into Milan. Apparently Brighton, Crystal Palace and West Ham are all interested. Where do you think we're at with Balogun?
I think you can't have Eddie and Balogun going into next season. You can't. Like it's actually not fair on either of them either. Like I don't think because they're both at a stage of their careers where they either need minutes. They need minutes. And if it's a really 17-year-old striker, you can wait your turn. But these guys are, Ballo's gone out on loan, proved he has a level at least that we didn't necessarily know he had. Where that level is in the Premier League, we don't know, but let's see. And with Eddie, I think the more saleable asset is probably Balogun. I think at the moment for me, Eddie, Jesus, and Balogun, they all have different strengths and weaknesses, and they're not the same player. But if you
They're all very similar, innit? They're very similar.
like the Venn diagrams of what they're good at, there's a lot of overlap. So I think for me, and that's probably good because, like, you know, you don't have to change too much. You can take off Jesus and bring on, let's say, Balogun, and you're not playing to a completely different, you know, kind of lampposty Giroud type player. So, you know, like I understand that. I think Balogun's the more saleable asset. I think, to be honest, Balogun to me sounds a bit more. I've got criticism for saying this, but I am gonna repeat it. I think the international thing is a really good example of this, where they were both saying, I'm not sure whether I'm going to declare for England and try and be included in the international setup, right? And it's not. I think it's quite a good sort of almost symbol where Balogun basically went, here I am, you either take me or I'm going to go play somewhere else. That was his directive. They didn't take him. He went to play somewhere else. Eddie, I'm pretty sure still hasn't declared for Ghana, has he? He's still
clearly probably waiting for England, really and truly. Still hasn't come out and said I want to play for Ghana. Like, cold-hearted facts.
So what is he, 24? Like, you know,
23, 24. Yeah, he's getting on a bit.
I just think, yeah, it's so funny. 23, just get on, mate. Bloody hell.
Football terms, as Wenger said, 23 is when you turn up as a footballer. Now you've done your education. It's now time. Strikers typically peak around 27, 28. So he's still a young man in them terms.
So yeah, I think it's like almost the perfect symbol where Eddie's still at that kind of not quite. And I just think if I'm Eddie, I'm just like, mate, are you guaranteed to play every single minute next year? If you believe in yourself, if you think you are the striker that you can be, drop down, mate. Drop down to either a bottom level of the Premier League or top level of the Championship.
Go get 20, 30 starts in the Prem.
Go get whatever. But I would say go and be the talismanic striker for a Luton or a top of the Watford or whatever. And if you go and score 30 championship goals in one season, you'll be back for how much money? Your stock will be here. That'll be way higher than you sat on the bench at Arsenal, which you ultimately will be. You may believe that you're going to get some minutes and starts, but be realistic. You're not going to start every single
unless Jesus is injured. God forbid that happens, you know, which, to be fair, Eddie did feeling well in his absence. I agree with you with that point. So I know it's harsh, but could you say, if I ask you, would you say Eddie Nketiah is more comfortable than Balogun there? Because there's more clarity probably over Eddie Nketiah's role than Balogun.
I think so. And by the way, that's fine. Like,
there's nothing wrong with it.
On personal terms, if you're Eddie and you like that role and you don't mind and you're not that bothered about starting, cool. But I just think if I was Eddie and I'm only projecting what I would do, I would go and do that. And if I was Balogun, I'd be sold. And if I was Arsenal, I'd go and get a different type of striker. But we might just have to see what's out there on the market. I would think Balogun.
You just answered my other question as well, but go on. Fantastic stuff, man.
But he's read the script.
Literally, man.
But yeah, I think Balogun's the more saleable asset. I imagine we'll sell him, keep Eddie, and I hope we can get something else in the market. Probably because I still think Jesus is our best option when Saka's out. So I try and get something else up front. And if I was Eddie, I'd leave, but he might be comfortable. So
it's an interesting one, man, because when I look at it on one hand, if we just look at this from a working environment, you know, you're comfortable, you know, the manager likes you. In fact, Mikel Arteta's, you know, been your guy, but you've been someone Arteta's liked since you came back from that Leeds spell, actually, when you got a couple of starts, you know, you're comfortable, you're a Haaland lad. You did kind of show that you could fill in. From a selfish point of view, one thing you do hear about existing players, as shown on the pitch, actually, and players coming in, Mikel Arteta is, you know, a great hands-on manager and he can improve your game. I'm not going to compare him to Pep, but, you know, other than Pep Guardiola, Arteta is one of the only guys kind of mentioned in that realm, and you have seen an improvement in Eddie Nketiah's game. You know, he's gone from just standing, being a reactive poacher. He can play out wide. He does get involved in general play. He does have more variety into his game. He's just signed a big new contract as well, so I don't know if that has consequences for Arsenal to move him on. I do think people are harsh on Balogun because if you swap the roles and, you know, Balogun done what Eddie did here, for example, and Eddie did what happened at Reims, where would we be in that? That being said, you know, if I'm Balogun, I'm sitting there and saying, technically, out of all the guys, strikers contracted to Arsenal, I scored the most goals. I believe I could do this Haaland thing. I've been exposed to rubbing shoulders with some of the best players in the game now. I'm now an American international. I think it's a thing where Balogun, I think he's just on anything. I think he's removed his emotion from it. And by all means, he wants to come through and make it at Arsenal. But to grow, that might not happen. And I think he's just selfish in a nice way to go and get your first team football. I agree with your point about sellable assets, because clearly, you know, Eddie's probably on less wages. I mean, yeah, no, Balogun's on less wages than Eddie Nketiah, and he's went out and scored 20 odd goals. So it's a decision. I personally think internally at the club, I think they've already made their decision and we're just waiting. I do hope he can impress Mikel Arteta and try and get an opportunity. I kind of selfishly hope he was contracted for a longer period of time, because as much as I like what Balogun's done, he's only done it for 1 year. There's no necessary pressure in theory for you to now say, okay, now I've got to make it at Arsenal. He has to make it now or whatever. Now, if selling Balogun, like you kind of said with Partey, if it's a means to an end, whether we want to sell them or not, and we can reinvest and whatnot, I'm all for it. With Inter Milan, I'm not sure though, man. You know, he's been linked with 40 to 50 million. Do you think it's realistic to get 50 odd million? I know you're not a transfer man, but to get 50 odd million from European clubs, really?
Well, I said at the end of last year, there's 2 Champions League semi-finalists who are going into that game with 37 and 38-year-old strikers. You know, there's got to be a time where those guys are going to move on. They've got to think about that, and there's going to be a lot of revenue there. So, I think so. I think it's possible. I think we probably don't think Edu can do that.
Nah, give him some credit, man. He tied down players in that, man, and brought in some. Edu can do this, man.
No, for sure. I read it, but I think quickest little
hopefully.
I think we can do it. I think we are, as Arsenal fans, assume that basically we're going to get peanuts, and you know we're going to get literally like a packet of crisps and 20 quid. Like, you know, I get that, but I also think we have a young striker who's got 2 years left on his deal, who's gone out and proved it in Liga. There's got to be someone in world football.
It's got to be a market, man.
There's where you can get over 40. I think over 40 million, I'd be happy with, because that's. I think more than that, you're going like, well, he's
pushing it
1 season. Like, you can't. I think there'll be some people go, what's, you know, this player's going, you know, Rasmus Højlund's going for how much money? Yeah, but he's a different. You know, I think Rasmus Højlund could turn into a star. Like, but I think Balogun will be a very, very good striker.
And you're forgetting Man United are buying him. So yeah, it's like being a British tourist and going on holiday. You're not paying the local rate. They're adding tax on it. Yeah. Exactly. You're speaking facts on that. The issue is with Balogun is just, you know, if he was to stay at the club, obviously, and not play for 6 months, that's going to obviously have a knock-on effect for his resale value. And I just think even if Balogun's going to stay until he displays anything else, it's a thing where you're part of the squad. You might have to do the Eddie and Reece Nelson thing. It's difficult, but take your opportunities. And when I break it down, do I think Balogun could get minutes off the bench? Yes, but I want us to kind of do what we did last season, in that we're kind of playing the same team. Of course, we need rotation. How many games is there? We need to start the Premier League well and be consistent, and players held on to shirts. So you could effectively rule that out. I don't see him starting in the Champions League, at least until, you know, early doors, we secure qualification for the next round. How many League Cup games are there from now to the end of the year? And as you know, the FA Cup comes into play in January. So when you break it down, who knows really? And Balogun's still kind of learning. I do think if Eddie Nketiah can kind of learn to play out wide, then why can't Balogun? But at this moment in time, he hasn't necessarily got that. And I do think he's at the right stage. It's his second loan spell. He's doing the right things. And ultimately, strikers are judged on goals. 20 more goals from a front man at this club. We got 80 odd last year. We're getting 100. We're lit. But at the same time, as you know, in a Mikel Arteta system, goals aren't necessarily the most important thing as a striker. Jesus does not need to score to have a good game. Even when Eddie filled in, he had good games where I badly wanted him to score because it's a good little reward for what he did. So it's one you kind of have to tread carefully. Would you sell him to a British team?
Balogun?
Yeah.
Yeah, if they're paying. I mean, then he's staying in the Premier League, and I wonder whether, you know,
come back to haunt us.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I also think Balogun's good. I'm not saying that at all. I just think I can't see him becoming like a star. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I mean, let's cut the crap. Yeah, he's lit. He's very good. But fans internally are overrating him. Like, fans are overrating him. We think he's good, but they're putting him on the level where he's not at this moment in time.
It's like saying he's going to be an Osman. He's like better than Osman. It's like, no, he's not. He
hasn't displayed that yet. And we're not discrediting him for anyone listening, for what it's worth.
No. Very good player, by the way. And also something you mentioned earlier, which is a really good point, is that a striker Mikel Arteta system, I just looked it up. So Jesus's non-penalty expected goals last season was 13.2, and he underperformed by 11. Underperformed by 2, as in with 11 by 2.2.
I got scared there for a sec.
Saka and Jesus, looked up recently for a video. They both overperformed their non-penalty XG by 50%. That is where the goals are coming from. These guys are elite finishers. So the striker in our system can afford to be a bit more of Gabriel Jesus. This is why he's perfect for us. I think at some point we might start to see the 8s filling in that role and the striker doing a little bit more, but we do have a sort of Haaland, Kane type striker. But those guys don't come around very often. You know, that you can't just say, well, let's just go out and get Haaland.
Yeah.
It's like 5 years for these guys. So, you know, it just doesn't happen. Well,
You're right.
Yeah, Balogun's not going to be that. He's very good. He's probably not as good as Jesus right now in terms of all-round play, and then therefore can we get 50 million? But it's the whole thing. Like, not every player who comes out of the academy needs to go on and start 300 games for the first team. The academy is also there to make us money. So let's
generate revenue. You said it there. You're right, and you're right in that regards. And one thing I would say to Eddie, regardless, you know what? As stupid as it sounds, I don't think 10 million is good money for Balogun. But if you look at it, an academy prospect that's barely got an opportunity to kick a ball, you know, play 10 times for this club, anything he sold for is kind of gravy. Now, that being said, of course, I want the 35 to 50 million. But just to reiterate your point, of course, we want to have a whole squad of Haaland boys all coming through the academy, all of that jazz. But if they can't, we have to generate revenue. And we're getting to that spot now that difficult decisions have to be made. You know, Saka was always going to come through, even if he came through right now. But one thing that benefited a Saka or a Smith Rowe, maybe even some others, is that we didn't have this squad. We had to strip back to basics. As we're getting better as a team, naturally the pathway is going to get closed, really. You look at last season, Rico Lewis was playing all the time for City. The minute it got to crunch time, respectfully to the lad, you're sitting on the bench. So it's a techie one. What I would say with Balogun, to go to the point you said, you know, in that the striker market isn't really out there. Every 6 months you see who's the lad you said, the Atalanta striker? You got him, you've got Vlahovic, you've got these guys that are kind of popping up on the scene. So I do imagine when European clubs are assessing strikers or however metrics, Balogun must be somewhere on the shortlist. So I don't think he's short of advisors, but at the same time, you might just be relying on Balogun's agent, and it might be reliant on what Balogun does, really. If we move on from obviously that, Pepe, I'm sure you've seen the news. Obviously, apparently there's wage issues in Saudi Arabia with Pepe, considering they're going to give Henderson the bag. It's crazy money, really and truly. It's absolutely ridiculous. What'd you make of Pepe? And where you at with Pepe beyond the obvious, man? Do you think this gets solved this summer?
Well, he's not on the tour, is he?
No.
I think he'd be stupid not to try and find some type of agreement, even if it meant, you know, just foregoing some weight. That's the thing. At some point, when you're a footballer, it's like you only so much money. You must just be like, look, let's just, you know, pay me out or pay me half and I'll leave. Like, just, it's fine. Like, I think at some point you just go, look, what do I want to do? I think Saudi might be a good option for him. I'm hoping we get a bit of money for him if he's going to Saudi, considering, you know, how much they're getting for Henderson and Fabinho or whatever, at least 10, 15 million or something. But I think if he's
that would be nice for Pepe. That would be Edu's probably best piece of business. You cleared 140k off the wage books and you got 50 million. That would be good moves for Pepe. And it's a shame, man, because he's not rubbish, but go on.
No, he's not rubbish. And this is the thing. I remember having an argument. I remember having a debate with someone on Twitter once about this and sort of saying like, oh, you think Pepe's a terrible player? I was like, I don't think he's a terrible player. I just know that there's not one way to play football. And the way we play football is not the way Nicola Pepe plays football. And that is fine. Like, two things can be true. Nicola Pepe is a very, very, very good player. And Nicola Pepe isn't right for Arsenal and is not good enough for our first team or is not right for our first team. Forget good. Like, those two facts can exist. So I know the internet puts us
everything has to be black or white, unfortunately.
These camps where, you know, it's, oh my God, there's so many.
Like, you're having Arteta in or out. You got to be on one side of the fence, mate.
You literally, I mean, I put something out yesterday saying something along the lines of like, I don't think Jesus is world class. And oh my God, you think Jesus is terrible? What?
It's social media, bro.
What? But also, like, I understand, like, the wider thing of it. So I'm just going to go on this rant for a second. The wider thing of
Take it away, man.
I understand, because the currency of these websites is engagement. So you're going to see bigger, like, more hot takes. Those are going to be the ones. Sensationalism. Those are going to be the ones sort of elevated above everything else. That's what we're going to think because those things keep our attention. It's the attention economy. In the end, they're just trying to sell us ads. That's really what's going on. And we're just being
Bad news spreads faster than good news, man.
It's these big, hot takes are going to be things that. So I get that, and I think this idea that everything is sensationalized. I understand, but it's the business, it's the economy of the website. The part I don't understand is like if you're going through your Twitter and you see someone who you follow, who's like an Arsenal creator, and they go, "Oh, Jesus isn't world class," and then your first response is, "Right, you're a little I can't believe you and you hate Jesus." It's like, bro,
because you're forgetting football brings out the primary emotions in people, man.
Touch some grass, mate, please.
Have a drink, man. Have some water or something stronger because something's going on in your personal life, man.
I saw you respond to someone the other day, like, please go outside. I can't remember what it was, but it really made me laugh.
Bro, this is why I try to stay out of this social media stuff because, as you said, it's hot take land, and then you'll be driving yourself mad. Like I used to proper reply to all of this. Then I thought, do you know what? If I thought like him, maybe I would have that viewing as well. And that's the shame. Like with Pepe, I think looking back in hindsight, when Arteta kind of was playing Pepe, I now look at it as what I call Arteta's means to an end. Like in hindsight, he probably was always going to get rid of Xhaka this year. Obviously, we've seen Pepe, Ainsley Maitland-Niles, Aubameyang, Lacazette. Probably a couple of other players, David Luiz at the time. They've kind of looked like they're key players under Arteta. Now I look at it and think, you know what? Maybe he's just saying, 6 to 12 months, I need to do this with you. I don't know if, the finances of the Kroenkes that were previously unavailable allegedly have now been made available, and he keeps moving. And you're right. There's Pepe's not a bad player. It's just he's just not the guy. Like Saka on his worst day outperforms him, unfortunately.
It's like when you move into a new house, you want to renovate it, right?
There you have it.
What you're going to do is not eat because the kitchen isn't exactly how you want it. Like you have to eat.
Got to adapt.
So you have to like try and cook different meals, and then eventually you get the kitchen you want, and you can do what you want. So like I think there's a means to an end, as you say. And he is a right-sided left footer, as is Saka, but he's someone who needs more space. He's someone who isn't necessarily as adept at receiving out wide. He's not necessarily as adept at beating his man.
Not as switched on defensively as Saka, even though that can improve with Bukayo.
Exactly. So there's, as you mentioned, there is a means to an end. Not a bad player. He's just not right for us, and that's fine. It doesn't need to be a big deal, but of course it will be.
It will. What do you make of Cedric being told you can't travel? Because my personal opinion, I'm not going to lie, I thought it was harsh by Arteta. I'm not criticizing. I always love it because he's now probably saying, you know what, you can use the London Coley facilities. You're an employee of the club, but get on the phone to your agent and keep it moving. You've heard Cedric wants to try and fight and play in the Champions League. I don't know what Champions League he's looking to play in, but yeah, obviously he hasn't traveled. Nelson's picked up a knock and Lokonga hasn't traveled. So what do you make of that? And technically Smith Rowe, but he'll join up.
If I see Cedric Suarez with a Champions League badge on his arm playing for Arsenal, I will be.
That's the ones where I start. As much as I love Arteta, bro, they're the ones where I look at Arteta now and say, you know what, I can't get at Cedric. He should not be playing in this regard. As much as I love you, Gaffer, this is now your L, man. It's crazy.
Well, I think Willian is the one. Well, even Willian, I don't want to just start to just be like have rose-tinted goggles with Arteta, but I do look back and think you're coming in like December the whatever, no time to prep. You need a right-sided defender. He's got Premier League experience. I'm clearly, as we've seen, him. What did he do that next summer? Because we had Bellerin, so he kept playing Bellerin as much as possible. Because
another means to an end.
So yeah, exactly. Cedric was never our first teamer. He's just managed to weasel his way in.
Him and Holding probably fist bumping as we speak, mate.
And then he signed Tomiyasu and Ben White next summer. So it was clearly never his long-term thing. With Pablo Mari, immediately that summer he bought another left-sided centre-back.
I don't know who scouted him. Probably the same guy who brought Runnison to the club. I don't know.
Runnison is the L.
That's an L, man. The manager can get things wrong. Runnison and Willian, they're the biggest L's I've seen Arteta take. But you got to take
it with that. Although, to be fair, if you've seen Willian's... okay. Well, if you see Willian's data before he came in...
I don't need data. I'm using my eyes. No, it weren't it. I saw the angle, especially with what he's probably done with Trossard and that now. Probably the right idea at the wrong time. And to be fair to Arteta, Willian was Premier League proven, all of that jazz. I didn't think Willian was going to, move the needle, but I'm sure me, even the most harshest critic of Willian didn't think he'd be that bad. But Arteta's just got to hold that L data or not, my guy.
Remember when he scored the free kick on his final performance?
He almost tricked me
angry. I've never been so annoyed to see us score, and I was like, "Oh my god!"
I can't believe Willian played for our club. If I'm honest with you, not that deep. I can't believe it. Oh my days. You know what? We actually haven't spoken about kind of being a bit more specific on Declan Rice. Do you think this is the most important signing we've made during the Emirates era? I don't want to sound reactionary and things. Personally, I do. And that's, in fact, I think it's up there with Ozil and Alexis, because Ozil was kind of a turning point of us getting out of finances. Alexis is obviously a quality player, but based on where we're trying to go with the club and the ambition, and even the Athletic came out and said, for all of Declan Rice's quality, we wanted to pay 70 to 80 million. So we've overpaid for a talent who ultimately we think in terms of longevity and what he gives to the club will pay off. So do you think it's the most important signing in our history? Do you think this is a mark in our history?
Well, I thought Arteta's comments were fascinating. He said he's got the physical qualities. Because obviously whenever we sign him, it's just like, we're excited to add Declan to the squad. But he's been a bit more specific. He's got the physical qualities that we've been missing for a while. That's why we had to do what we had
Elite
to do
shade from him
to get him, because he's really important for us. So he's saying, yes, we overpaid. And yes, we had to, put in that work, because he has the specific physical qualities that we're missing from our midfield. I read that as the same thing as from the Ornstein article. Essentially, if we didn't get him, we can't play in a new way. A while ago, we spoke about players that could complement each other, give us more flexibility, more depth, and more quality, and take a winning hunger into the team with players who really want to push themselves to a different level. I see him like a lighthouse. He will light up the others and improve the others and make the team better.
Don't think anyone could disagree with that.
Yeah, and I think like the Arteta often talks about earning the right to win, and I think Rice is one of those players. I was talking about this with George on our podcast. He knows what to say, doesn't he? Like in that first video, like he's saying the right thing, like he's reading out the quote from Rocky, and like he's switched on from a media perspective.
He's been there, done it. Like he understands what it's about to play for this club, and what that's one thing. When we spoke about this last week, I said he's very identifiable because he fronts up to the music. One thing that got me with Declan Rice is last season, I think I can't remember the score, but West Ham got absolutely bullied, battered against Brighton, and it was terrible. Their fans were dismayed. His comments, and I'd implore you all to look at it. I can't remember it word for word, but it was almost so honest. As a fan, you probably get peed off, but in your heart, he's speaking facts. You're right with the Declan Rice comments, man. Yeah.
Like he knows the right thing to say. He understands the media, but also I think he is someone who genuinely cares. And I think he's someone he's the sort of player, like you remember like the sort of mid 2010s when everyone was like, I don't care, there's no passion in the team. Like all that sort of era, the sort of from about Chris Hudson onwards, 2013, that sort of period where we did have a lot of players who probably went home, didn't think about the game. I guarantee you, if we lose a game, it will ruin Declan Rice's week. That's
and all of the players now, to be fair.
Yeah, that's the kind of guy we want. That's the kind of guy that in those moments, like for example, that Southampton game, forget his qualities on the pitch, just from a mental perspective, Zinchenko doing the huddles, whatever. He would be fuming if that happened because ultimately for whatever reason, because
that's City away as well, where we look very defeated, if I'm honest, before a ball was kicked.
Yeah, so I think having those guys who not only have the we've spoken to death about his qualities in terms of his I think people massively underrate Declan Rice's technical quality, and it's taken an F2 freestylers video for people to see that he's good at football.
Professional footballer, England international, West Ham captain, now in fact a European trophy winning, 200 odd appearances.
Did you know?
No, bro, he can hit a crossfield pass. It's crazy. Oh my God, professional footballer. Even the worst of Premier League footballer can do things out of this world to the common man or woman. It genuinely shocks me. Like people are like, oh my God, he looks over his shoulder. You reckon you can play as a 6 not looking over your shoulder? You get in a lot of trouble, mate.
And I do think actually that comes from this kind of, it might be because if he was called like Declan Rice or something, and he was from Argentina.
Yeah, we know there's an English bias.
People would see that differently. I think people see him as a kind of destroyer or whatever. And that is probably his best thing. So I kind of understand it. But going forward, there's so much physical potential and so much, I think.
Lovely ball carrier, not a dribbler, ball carrier. And that's something we've missed, that aggression, really and truly. You don't really see that from Partey consistently. That weren't really a strength of Granit Xhaka's, to be honest. Rice gives us that. And I think people should be happy about the signing. Like, I genuinely think this is our top 3 most important signings during the Emirates era, with the luxury of not actually just sitting down and writing all the names of great players, because you could say that with Aubameyang, you could obviously say that with Ozil and Alexis, you could probably throw that towards Santi Cazorla. I would probably say Arshavin as well indirectly as a claim. So you're fully right in that regard. One of my go on.
Say as well, I think there's a lot of attacking potential that has to be unlocked as well. Like I don't think people realize that I think the most goals he scored in the Premier League is like 4 I would not be surprised to see him score 9 or 10 goals next season.
We need that because you'll be replacing Xhaka's goals that we're losing. We technically lost from midfield.
Exactly. So I think like on the edge of the box, like his ball carrying and stuff, and then obviously off the pitch, you know, I think he is just the exact character that we need. So it's the perfect signing. It's not only just him. It's what Arteta says. It's what he's going to transmit to everyone else. And
Lighthouse.
Things he's going to be able to. The things he's going to be able to. What's the word? Free up in others and make other people look better. So yeah, it's unbelievable. I would agree. It probably is the most.
It's like a safety belt, bro. It's like a safety belt. The same things we kind of said about Partey. I think it was Everton last season at home, how he makes everyone able to play their natural game. Rice does that. And I look at Partey respectfully to Holding. You know, when Holding came into the team, you saw Partey probably have to worry about too many things. If you've got Declan, as you said, then they can both give each other confidence. That ties me to my next question, you know, where Wenger kind of failed. Is Arteta directly, consciously or unconsciously picking up in a sense of, you know, and for what it's worth, I think everyone will forget Rice played for West Ham in like a year or two. No disrespect to West Ham. It's just, he looked like he's always been part of the furniture. But Arsene Wenger, tried to do the English core, you know, with everybody he had. Indirectly now, you've got Saka, you've got White, you've got Ramsdale, you've got Rice, if I haven't said that. You've got Smith Rowe. I'm forcing it, but technically Eddie Nketiah and Reece Nelson. Where are you at with that?
This Smith Rowe agenda you got.
Nah, I'm never gonna stop peddling it, mate. When he's back, I don't want to see no tactical vids from you when he's back. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm always back to him. I'll tell you out.
Oh man.
I don't know how much it matters really, like in terms of the nationality. I suppose what you need is a strong culture, and I suppose if the culture around you is supported by if you're in your natural habitat, let's call it that, you might feel more comfortable. I don't know. I've never really thought like an English core or particular core matters. I think what matters is a blend of a group, and I think you need to look at a group, and it's like anything. Like people see it at work or whatever. Like you can't just drop leadership onto something. Like if someone comes in and starts just telling you what to do, you're like,
it's going to have a negative effect.
No.
Like there's a time where you have to do that, but for the group, it's not going to work.
For me, naturally, I don't know about you, but honestly, when someone tells me what to do, my immediate response is no.
I'm naturally confrontational, really. Anyways, unless I can sense your aura, like someone like Arteta, where you're charismatic, then I'm not really going to take it in. It all depends, really. If you try and be a dictator, it's not going to work.
But that's because you trust him. That's because you go, oh, you know what you're talking about, so I will follow you. But if someone's just telling me what to do. But I remember I used to have this job as a nanny for these kids, and I dropped them off, and they were like carrying stuff into, they were like going to like scouts or something. And this woman was like asking everyone to like help with all the things. And I really hated her aura, hated her energy. And
you didn't help the ladies. Bad
she asked
guy,
me to do something. I just went, no. And I felt really bad for it. It's like, yeah, I should have just helped her. But I wasn't just an immediate sense. I was like, I don't like you, so I'm not going to help. But
yeah,
my point being that, like, I think when you respect and you
have to be able to inspire someone to do that anyways, if I'm honest.
If you see someone who you think like, I really rate you as a person, I really rate like what you're doing, you do follow them naturally, but you can't have too many of those. This is the problem. You can't have, and to have the emotional intelligence to understand that there's like times when we need to listen to Martin Odegaard, times we need to listen to Zinchenko, different types of leadership, because leadership
I agree.
Leadership can be scoring 25 goals a season and saying nothing in the changing rooms, just delivering. Leadership
leading by example.
Leadership can be a sort of like, come on, guys, like, let's fucking go.
Tony Adams thing.
Swear. But you know, let's go, like, let's do it. Leadership can be, you know, quiet little words, quiet little, you know, I see you. So however it looks. But you know, we're seeing the development of new leaders. We're seeing Gabriel with the armband in the Nuremberg game. We're seeing Gabriel Jesus. Now Xhaka's gone, there's a big space for a physical, for want of a better word, a very masculine character and guy.
Someone who lets their nuts hang, essentially, the conventional leader that, like you said, with, you know, to kind of criticize Kai Havertz, you know, to them fans that wouldn't rate Havertz because he's not getting goals and assists, they'll be drawn towards the Declan Rice for obvious reasons. You're essentially right, somewhat alpha male without trying to sound outdated, as you said. You're right in that regards, man, and I think Rice fills that in. I don't know where I'm at with the English core, because like you, I think it's overrated. I think we've seen players that are English, players that are French, all this sort of stuff at Arsenal and elsewhere, and they've done their job. The beautiful thing about football, doesn't matter what sex you are, what race, what religion, Can you score goals? Can you assist? Can you keep more balls out the back of your net?
I
If you're
don't
good,
care
you're good.
what you are. If you
Yeah, it
score
doesn't
any
matter.
goals,
It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. And you made a great point about different leaders, because also added on to that, there's someone kind of what you said, probably even a El Nene or a Jorginho or even a Holding, people you don't necessarily see, people who might not even say throughout a season, they won't say a damn word. But when they do speak, it's issues, because it takes me back to Iniesta. Apparently, Iniesta was one of the more quiet players at Barcelona. And there was a time, actually in Pep Guardiola's autobiography, where he was saying he was kind of disillusioned. He didn't know he was doing the right things. And he got a knock on the door and he said he couldn't believe it. It's Iniesta. And he just said, Gaffer, I really believe in what we're doing. And that gave him a kick up the arse. So that's a fantastic point, man. Would you move for Caicedo as we get to our last two questions? Because I'm still flirting with it. I'm keeping one eye on David Ornstein. It's gone probably, but yeah.
I don't know.
I'm greedy. Bring him.
I've never like. I've always like the Rice thing. I've always been like, oh my god, yeah. Like,
You have the receipts are there.
I've never watched Caicedo and gone, that's 80, 90 million worth of talent. He's a good player. Let's be clear. Very good player. Like, I'm not Premier League player. Should be at a top 6 club. Absolutely. Similar to Enzo, actually, weirdly. They're both in the same midfield. Like, I've watched like an Ericsson and been like, oh, player, mate. Do you know what I mean? Like, player. But Caicedo, is he worth like 90 million? I don't know.
He's probably not, but it's a shame, because him, Rice, Bellingham, Tchouaméni, half of these players aren't necessarily worth what they've gone for.
I think
really,
Bellingham is, mate. I think
like, Bellingham's a quality player. Quality, don't get it twisted, but 100 million, like, and it's not an attack at him. We've spoken about this before. It's more a wider thing. Even when Vinicius initially went to Real Madrid, he weren't worth that at that moment in time. It's more what you're getting, what they can bring. 100 million is probably the new 50. I'll take Caicedo just because you do your job. But like you said, Brighton are going to play hardball. 100 million. We betted on Rice. We move, innit?
Also, mate, like what I would have seen him doing is the kind of if Rice is going to be the 6, is sort of the Declan Rice role. Like I think there's a forward potential to him in a number 8 role that could work and could be really smart for us. But if he's going to come in, he's going to want to play games, and like at that kind of money, you don't buy someone for 80, 90 million and they don't play. So I would be very surprised if we did move for him and invest that kind of money into him. I imagine if we lost Partey, we'd move for possibly Romeo Lavia, which would be a shame because I think that would be detrimental. But I don't see us moving for someone who hasn't got forward potential as much, and he does. Like, I don't know. I can't see it in this new formation in the sense of like with those more freer 8s and this proper number 6 that we just bought to free up those guys to then buy someone whose best qualities don't come in that area. Do you know what I mean? So
it's interesting. It's an interesting one though, man, because I mean, had we have got him in January and had we still went for Rice in the summer, maybe I'm interlocking the two. Where would we look? I kind of think now that based on what you said, that probably need Partey to go, and then Rice. I mean, Caicedo kind of feels in that role. I'm still having him because I'm greedy, and I think we could have another number 6, even though we've got Rice and Partey. But that's a myth. My final question for you would be, the Arsenal journalists and all of them, they haven't said any names, but indirectly, allegedly, Arsenal is still open to bringing in 2 more players, and they all say the position of right wing. Do you think we'll bring in a winger? I know that you think we need one. I know you kind of said it earlier about Jesus could deputize for Saka. Are you confident we'll sign a right winger, having considered that Nelson's also signed a new deal? He plays there, among others.
I think we need something in the forward areas, and I'm always vague about it because I think that's as specific as I can be. Because I think right now our best options on the right wing are obviously Saka, and the next best option in terms of the way Saka plays and facilitating our play, with the receptions out wide, with the ability to roll contact, with the ability to be a goal threat from the wing, I think Jesus is the next best option. So either, in my opinion, you have Jesus, who is sort of our option on the right-hand side to come out there, and you sign a striker, or you sign a right-sided player. The problem with signing a right-sided player is if you're signing someone about to enter their peak, that they're not going to want to be behind Saka. If you're signing someone on the far-hand side who's sort of past their peak,
we've seen it before.
I don't think that we've seen it with Willian. Let's you discuss it. And if you're signing someone who's a project, well, you've got about as much luck with them as Kozia Dewberry, and why not just play Jesus there because he'll offer you more this season. So for me, I think we need something. I think if we get Balogun and Nketiah out the door, I think we'll wait, use Jesus there, unless the perfect person comes up, and then I think we'll probably go for either a project centre forward this summer once Balogun and Nketiah are out the door, or we'll keep Nketiah, wait, and then go for a proper centre forward, a typical number 9, let's call it, next summer, and then allow Jesus to be there. I can't see a name or even a profile or an age profile that works that's going to come in and deputise for Saka. I'd much rather have that flexibility, have 2 centre forwards who can rotate between each other, and Jesus is that guy on the far hand side.
That's a good thing, because it makes me kind of ponder what would have the world looked like had we have signed Rafinha, for example. As you kind of said, whatever people say about Rafinha, in the peak of his prime, wants to play week in, week out, getting called up in the Brazil team. But maybe that's something Arteta, to be fair, doesn't give a crap about. Like, if you want to play, make sure you're the guy to play. So it's a very interesting one. And I agree. I mean, we've said this before. I would love another striker. Obviously, if you sign someone that's similar to what we have and they're better, bring them in. I personally think we're missing a trick where just someone that's a bit more physical. They don't even necessarily need to be a starter. While I would want a striker that comes in 20-odd goals, it's just games where Jesus is not going to work. The false 9 stuff is not going to work. Someone that's can just be a battering ram and get us further up the pitch. But as you kind of said earlier, the problem with that is consistently over 90 minutes. I don't know if they're going to give all the other aspects into Arteta's play. It's an interesting one. I know I said final question, but final one. What's your thoughts on the away kit? As positive as you can be, man. I bought it.
Yeah.
I look like a traffic warden, man.
RIP your bank balance. I don't hate it, to be honest. Like, I think it's clearly, like, I think they know it's a controversial pick. But also, the one thing I will say is, if this becomes like the iconic kit, as in we like win the league in this kit, I'll be pretty annoyed.
It's the best thing ever, isn't it? Then, yeah. And I was one of the pioneers.
Well, maybe, yeah. Is that why you bought it? Just because...
Yeah, man. I'm like Mikel Arteta. The world wanted Xhaka gone. He stuck by him. The world saying the kit's rubbish. I'm saying it's decent, even if I don't believe it.
To be fair, the home kit you're wearing looks sick. I like the home kit.
Do you know what? This is another one. Unpopular opinion. I haven't really been impressed. Really, I've come to accept it. I don't think it's the best
kits one. You don't even like.
Nah, I love my club though. You know, football doesn't make sense. As we said, football's an illogical game. Like, people will say they don't care about watching their team, and they'll still pay their season tickets. Man, I'm not the first or the last.
Let me speak to viewers. This man has spent the best part of 160 quid on 2 kits he doesn't even like. You don't subscribe right now for the passion.
Hey, you're funny.
What's wrong with you?
Hey, you're funny, man. And on that note, let's wrap this up, man. What content have you got? Because I know you kind of said you're bringing out a video, but reiterate the point.
Video out later on today, which will be... When's this out?
Let me talk to my advisor. When's this out? I don't know right now. Like, as quick as I can get a thumbnail made, mate.
Talk to my boss. So it probably will be out. So there's a video out on my channel now, which has just come out, probably basically discussing what we talked about earlier, which was the free rate 8, sort of talking through that idea. Got another one coming about the sort of second part of Arsenal's window with some bonus content with Clive Palmer from the Arsenal Vision podcast. Make sure you go and check that out. He's another good Arsenal fan. Love him. And yeah, more stuff to come. Cannon podcast with Babs and George. The empire grows, my friend. The empire grows. As he said, the empire grows. Regardless of any content that's going to come out or not come up, make sure you check out the different you turn on your notifications, you subscribe, you hit the like buttons, and you follow him on all the Twitter business, which information will be in the description. That way you don't miss anything, really and truly. But on that note... abuse. Nah, forget all the abuse, man. Don't worry about them trolls, man. They're talking nonsense. But Alex, as usual, is fantastic, man. Take care of yourself. People, smash the like button, subscribe, all that good stuff. We're out. Safe.
There's always just that active red line defending.
I think like